My name's Uriel Cruz. I don't even know where to start. I've been in the Honda game for a very long time. It all started watching my dad being a mechanic. He was working at home just how I'll be working at home as well. I learned that from him. Just watching him, he'll call me to help him with the jack while he's doing something in the garage. Watch him build cars. He wasn't really into putting cars together. It was mostly like mechanic work to provide for the family, which he had no problem doing because I didn't really ask for much because I knew what was going on, you know. I would see my parents struggle, but I wouldn't really ask for much. So when I would need it, he would really tell me, you know, he'll tell me, yeah, with no problem. So I learned that from him. From what I know now, all this mechanic work, everything that I know, started from him, watching him. That was when, like since 5, when I could, you know, finally understand on what to do, you know, and yeah, just watching him. I gotta remember everything right now. Man. So yeah, we'll be done with that. Learn from my dad, watching him grow up. And when I got my first Honda, it actually wasn't a Honda, it was an Acura Integra DA9. This was back in 2013, 2014. It was a red one. I ended up getting that for, I believe, $700 or $800. I seen it posted for 15, and I only brought with me 1,000. You know how that works, you know. And I only brought with me $1,000. I really wanted the car because it had some iconic retracts that I can remember. Had a B18 B1 with a cold air intake, a Neo Speed strut bar. I think it had some function form coilovers because it was sitting low already. At that car, when I went to go buy it, I got it for $800. It was either $700 or $800, and when we drove off, I ended up pumping gas because the dude said he hasn't drove it for quite a while. So we ended up pumping gas, and the car didn't want to start. And so I ended up calling him. It was like, hey, bro, you know what's going on? Well, why ain't the car starting? And he ended up coming, you know, to the gas station, making things right. I ended up getting the car for $500 because the car didn't want to start still. So he ended up leaving, giving me some cash back, and I ended up getting the car for $500. So I was pretty happy about that. He left and everything, and I believe what was wrong with it, the spark plug wires were full of oil because the valve cover gasket was bad. So oil was getting into the spark plug gap, and so it wasn't bad ignition. So I ended up pulling those out, drying those out, and putting a napkin inside, you know, whatever I could to dry them out. And I ended up getting the car started, took it home, and that's the car that started it all. And once I got that car, I did my little things. I really didn't know much about the cars back then. I could do, tune-ups, from what I learned from my dad, some mechanic work, and, brakes, transmissions. And I was doing all that to the car. I think that was the first personal car I took to Kent, to the races. And that's the first car I learned how to drive manual as well, and that was a very good friend that showed me how to drive manual. And it was a friend, so when you're with friends, you really don't learn much because you're mostly bullshitting together. And my brother, my blood brother Edgar, he ended up coming over because I asked him for some help. And he ended up actually teaching me on where the sensibility of the clutch pedal, when you start letting it go, you give it some gas and you can feel it die. So, you know, I finally learned that from him because my friend didn't even teach me that. And so I learned that from him, and I was like, oh, yup, I'm on. You know, I'm driving now. I got my first car for 500. I can drive manual now. So I'm gonna take it back. I bought the car not even knowing how to drive manual. That was crazy. And I learned with that car. I had a stage 2 as well. That shit was crazy, bro. And yeah, that was crazy. I ended up selling that car for 2,000. Yeah, I ended up flipping it for 2,000. I ended up painting the conic retracts. No, I sold the conic retracts for some black rotor slips. I was, you know, once I got in the Honda, I got in the forums, started posting my wheels up for trade, you know, everything. And I ended up trading for some rotor slips, you know, gave it some love. And I ended up selling that car for 2,000. Now, so that right there was like, oh man, I can, you know, buy a car for cheap and flip it, you know, get more money. So I was like, man, let's do this. So after that, I went through so many cars. And while I was going through that cars, I wasn't really building, you know, I was just putting, you know, little things together to not, just to make it, you know, solid daily driving car. I wasn't really into the nice wheels, the nice, you know, nice lips or the seats. I did know about them, but I wasn't, you know, I couldn't afford them at that time. I was still young. And yeah, I was still young at the time, so I couldn't really afford all those parts. So I sold the car for 2,000, and that made me realize, you know, I can flip cars, you know. I got that car for cheap, and I made a pretty good profit, so I was like, man, you know, let's do this. I sold that car. I believe my next car, no, I take that back. I sold that car, ended up moving to Centralia. Ended up, you know, I started my family young. My wife got pregnant at 16, so I ended up starting my family young. I had a job opportunity in Centralia, and so we went down there and moved to an apartment. I was a manager at a car wash and a detail spot and a lube. We would do oil changes, you know, small detail, car wash after it come out, etc. And once I moved out there, you know, I didn't have no car because the work was pretty close to where we were living. So I wasn't really worried about a car. But it wasn't mine, you know, I did miss it. I ended up buying, after everything, I ended up saving up. Well, I didn't really saving up because I ended up trading for that damn car. It was another blue Integra D9, blue one, a 92. And I ended up finding that on Craigslist. It wasn't running at all. The ad said it needed clutch, so I was like, okay, no problem. I got the car. I ended up offering him, I gave up. My wife still laughs about this, but I ended up giving up the TV. I ended up trading the TV and for $100 for the car. The guy towed it to the apartments and everything, bro. I gave up the TV and for $100, I was like, you know, babe, you gotta sacrifice the TV, you know. I'm gonna get you another one because it was a nice big TV, but you know, it was an older year, you know. It was, you know, messing up a little bit, but I ended up trading the TV plus 400 for the car. I got it towed there. I let it sit for 4 days until, you know, I got enough money for the clutch. And when to go, we pushed it to the lube shop, at the car wash lube shop. We were gonna do the clutch and everything. Ended up being just a passenger axle that was bad. So, you know, there wasn't no momentum from the wheel to the transmission. And so I was like, man, say no more. I ended up calling O'Reilly's. I got a new axle in there, and now I had a driving car. And I saved the clutch. I think I ended up selling the clutch. I didn't even do the clutch on that thing. Sold the clutch. I think it was all stock. That car was all stock. I ended up getting some DNA springs and coilovers, you know, just a simple swap over. And I lowered that car, and that's when I met a good friend named Andrew, and he also taught me a lot about cars. And when I met him, he showed me, you know, I wasn't actually doing the work. he mostly did it, because you know I didn't really, you know, how to do the springs, you know, putting it together, especially that dangerous ass bolt when you got to take it off the stock strut. I didn't want no part of that. So I was letting him do that, you know, mostly watching, and I was watching him, you know, do that. I lowered the car, and when I lowered it, the front was higher than the rear. So I was like, man, this is looking ridiculous. And so at that point, I really liked the car, but I was still rocking it. Like at that point, like I said, I was still young, you know, I didn't really, you know, understand, you know, the fitment, you know, how, you know, I have to have everything right. And so I was rocking it like that. I ended up, I didn't make the group page, but some friends that I've made from having that car, they made a group page named PMW DN9, DB1, you know, for the DN9 chassis. And we would make a big gathering of Integra DA9s up in the rocks. I'm pretty sure some people that are watching this might remember that. So that pretty much, you know, got my name a little bit out there, you know, from hosting those meets, singing those gatherings. Just, you know, nothing but good vibes. And because no one was really out there making, you know, meets for these type of cars. So everyone was excited, you know, to meet up and meet these people. I got, moving back to the car, I threw some LS webs on there because I still had the stock DA9, you know, the wheels, threw some LS webs on there. I think I sold that car too. Yeah, I sold that car too for $2,300. Yeah, $2,300. Yeah, I ended up selling that for $2,300 on some bronze Rota slips. I don't know what these slips, bro. They keep coming back. Cause I even got Rota slips in the truck too, but 5 look. Oh man. So I had bronze slips on that car. So you know, it was more popping with the blue and the bronze. So you know, everyone was loving that. And it did have some few dents, but it was still pretty clean for the year. At that time, with that car, I moved from Centralia back to Seattle, because some bullshit with the owner wanted to fire me for taking the lunch. I wasn't having that. After a 12-hour shift, I was like, yeah, no, bro, I ain't taking your shit. I'm out, you know. Move my family out of there and everything. Move back to Seattle, and so I moved back with that car. That car was driving me back from Centralia to Seattle, back and forth to visit family, because we had the family up here mostly. And so we moved back up here, everything straight. I got a job up in Aurora on Paisano Chevrolet. I was a mechanic for the dealership, and the owner would, you know, get cars from the auction, and anything he could buy that was like a simple fix and he could flip, we would have to work on it, you know. That's where I mostly learned most of my shit from that master mechanic that I was working with too. His name was Pancho, and that was some good times too there, man. When you're working with Latinos too, you know, it's all the good vibes and shit. And I learned a lot from him too, because I learned how to do, you know, motor rebuilds on, you know, GMC Denali. That was, you know, pretty big for me to watch. Doing transmission works on Escalades, you know, dropping them, swapping them. Like I said, anything that we could do for the owner can flip the car, you know, on the dealership. That was easy fix, and the car was still good. We would have to do it. And I had that car at the time, so I was always working on that car, you know, make sure everything was right, everything was good. Ended up selling that car, like I said, for $2,300. And at that time, I was just, like I said, I was looking for cars to flip, you know, for cheap, and I can bring up here. And that's where all the traveling started for me. Like, I don't have no problem traveling for parts or for cars. Like, that's like a drive for me with my family or with a friend, you know. We're just making memories. And after I sold that car for $2,300, I ended up getting another Jasper Green Acura Integra D9, but this one had an LSV. And I got that car. I really can't remember how much I got it for. I think I got it for 15, because I was trying to stay under the 2,000 range. Yeah, so I got another Jasper Green DA with the LSV, and I went all the way to Longview for that car. Longview, yeah, I went all the way to Longview for that car. I bought it from a dude named Sam Jason. I still remember his name because he's pretty big now. He has a pretty nice EK hatch with the built case swap. But I got that car from him, drove all the way to Longview, and brought it back. You know, everything was solid, had a nice engine on it, you know. I believe that was my first VTEC swap that I had, yeah. I think that was the first, yeah. That was the first VTEC one, and man, that's where all the fun started, you know. First VTEC swap, you know, you're banging gears left and right, you know, and the damn clutch ends up going out. But ended up going out 2 days later, bro. So, you know, I was pretty upset. You know, I ended up messaging him. You know, I was like, hey, man, you know, what happened, you know? And, you know, he told me in a, you know, bullshit, you know, excuse, you know, which, you know, it's all good, you know, that's all past. So I ended up doing the clutch swap at the work that I was doing on Aurora, and did the clutch, everything. Ended up putting a B16 LSD cable tranny in there as well. Got that all done and everything. Yeah, swapped the transmission, got the clutch done, new tranny, so you know your boy was back banging gears with the LSD two-wheel motion, you know, in the front instead of one tire fire. Oh man. And so man, I was banging gears, man. I'm going back through time right now, bro. And so I was banging gears through that, got the clutch, everything swapped, and I think I ended up putting some wheels. I think some, man, I don't want to say rotor slips again, but you already know. But I don't think it was some slips, bro. I don't think it was some slips. Thinking about slips so much, it made me think, you know. Anyways, I think I ended up throwing some wheels on there, you know, little stuff there and there. I traded, no, what did I do with that car? I think, yeah, I sold that car as well. Yeah, I sold that car. I can't remember because I can barely remember what the hell I did with that car. I don't know how much I sold it for or none. Sold the car, I think, yeah, I sold that one. Then I ended up buying a 4-door. Because, you know, I was getting all these 2 doors, you know, so it was getting hard, you know, putting the family in, you know, putting the car seat in every time. So, you know, wifey was complaining, you know, so I had to get the 4-door. Had to bought a 98 Civic 4-door EX. I believe it was EX or LX, because I think it had power options. It was tinted. It was like a dark bluish color with some dish wheels. I've never been a fan of dish wheels. I don't, you know, no hate on them, but I wasn't a fan of them, so those had to go up for, you know, up in the forum. Well, you know, testing waters, and got rid of those wheels. Got some. I think I got some. Man, all these damn wheels that I've gone through, I can't even remember on these damn cars. Anyways, man, fuck the wheels. Got that car with the 4-door. I ended up trading that car. I didn't keep that car for long. I think I kept it for a month or 2. Like I said, I was going through cars back and forth, always posting on the forums what's for trade. You know, some of my good friends, you know, remember those times. They will always bush on me. Oh, this boy can't, you know, keep a car, you know, up for trade again. I got rid of that car, and I ended up trading that car. Now this is where it gets interesting, bro. I ended up trading that car for another 4-door. So I posted that car for trade, and this dude ended up hitting me up from Longview, you know, with the 4-door, and this 4-door Civic had a VTEC swap. It had a B18 C1, and he was trying to straight trade, you know. everything, because his wife, you know, liked the car and everything. So I was like, okay, cool, bro. You know, I tried to, you know, make the deal, you know. Like, I'm not like, oh, hyped over. I was like, damn, bro, I'm about to get a 4-door with the GSR swap. And I made that deal happen. I had to drive all the way to Longview down again. We met up at Sears late at night. I checked out the car, and everything was cool. Everything was cool, and the part that I messed up is checking the car VINs. Now this was a life lesson for me, checking the car VINs and the motor VINs. I'm gonna get to that. So I ended up getting that car, you know, the title was clean, you know, VINs match on the title, firewire, everything. And I brought that car over here. It had a red front end. It was a forest green 4-door with the red front end. And with this car, that's when I met Doug, because I bought some K1s from him, some black. So it was mismatched color. 2 were black and 2 were original silver. Hey, but the tires were good, you know, so that's what bought me, because he was selling them for $700, bro. And so, you know, that was like the first like big purchase for me to buying a car, you know, because at that job, you know, I was starting to make a little bit good money being the mechanic there, you know, being the second lead mechanic. So I was, you know, I had a little bit extra money from, you know, all these bills. I always, you know, had to pay the bills first, you know, before I bought anything, you know, that was always mandatory. So I was having some extra cash, so I saved up, you know, to buy his wheels, because I seen them on Craigslist. This is the time that he had the white EG6 right-hand drive with the suede dash. I remember that car because I love that dash. But that car's long gone. I don't know where that car is right now. But I ended up getting the K1s from him. I put those on, man. I was so hyped. I was taking pictures from this side, you know, and from the other side, because one side was black and one side was, you know, original silver. So I had 2 options, you know. And I got those K1s. That's when I really, you know, started racing, like at Kent. That's when I really started going, like, mostly every weekend, you know, beating on this car left and right, bro. Like, I'm saying, you know, true memories, bro. You know, Oakdale, West March, that's where it was getting it. And this one night, this is how this car, you know, it went goodbye. So one night we were at the tracks, and I think we were at Claim Jumper. And the police didn't come for quite a while because we were running it back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And me and my buddy got tired of it because I think his car was messing up. So we head back to 76, and we head back to 76. His car was cool and everything, but there was no one there at the 76. And I did notice there was a cop up the hill by the warehouse. And we pull up everything. I pull up, you know, to a gas pump and everything. And I'm looking forward, and I see my friend pull off. I'm like, all right, you're just gonna pull off without telling me? And then I see the cop pulling up behind me, and with the lights, everything, I try to get away, but once I try to get away, turn on the car and everything, he was already at my window asking me for my information and everything. And to my room ones already know, to a cop asking me information, that's all bad. And so I ended up telling him, and he gave me this bullshit lie saying that the plates were coming back as a 3-door instead of a 4-door. So I was like, you know, that really confused me. And so that was giving them red signs, you know, thought the car was stolen, you know, stolen plates. So they searched through my car. They pulled me out, you know, in handcuffs, everything. They looked through the car, looked at every VIN, they popped the hood. And when I said that I should have checked the motor VIN when I got the car, now that's when, you know, I was like, man, because the VINs on the motor were scratched off. So there was no VINs. And so that was a very big red flag to the cops. They ended up impounding my car that night at the spot because they thought the motor was stolen. So they impounded the car. I ended up going through so many, you know, fees and impound fees. With that, I ended up getting the car, just the shell, no motor. They kept the motor because I had no proof, you know, for the motor. But I had some receipts for that motor that was done by a shop down in Oregon. But that wasn't nothing to them. They didn't really care. Then they're keeping the motor. I only got the car back with the shell. I still had the harness in there, mounts. That was it. Got the car back, towed it back to my apartments. At this time, I was staying in UW district. Towed the car back there. I was like, I was pretty upset. I got the car back with no swap. After that night, I was like, man. So I did, some digging around. From going to the tracks, I met a lot of friends that some are still very good friends, and some, made, then it wasn't meant to be. They got distant, etc. But some of those good friends was Jairo, which I'm still very good friends with him. I ended up getting the H series from him. That was in his coupe, silver coupe, because he was doing big boy moves at the time, going K series on the EG hatch. I ended up buying that motor from him, and I believe I bought that motor plug and play from him with the harness, long block with transmission, mounts, shift linkage, pretty much everything that I needed to get the swap in there and somewhat get it ready. I got that motor from him. I ended up putting it in that sedan. I didn't even get that car running. I just, from taking pictures and posting it online, got people interested, on the car. And I didn't even get that car running. I just got that A series done. I got it in there. And this friend that is still a very good friend of mine named Andrew, he offered me his silver hatch, this EK hatch, which was my first EK hatch that I've had with a B16 swap. That solid runner. He was trading me his running car for my sedan with the H series, which I told him everything, everything that had to get done. I gave him the list that I had, everything that had to get, that he had to buy, like belts, had to extend the harness for the alternator, coolant hoses. He had to, run the cables, through the floor for the shifter box. And he got all that done. He got it running, I believe, like not even a week later. He ended up sending me a video of him getting the car running, which was, I was pretty happy, for that the motor was solid, and that, he finished that car, and that it was going to a good friend, that I could still see. I got that silver hatch from him, which was, like I said, was my first EK hatch. It was silver on some, I believe, I can't even remember what wheels, bro. I can't even remember what wheels. Like I said, at the time, I was just worried about wheels, getting that car solid, to take the work and making it look nice. I ain't worried about alignments, no fitments, no nothing. And man, that was like I said, I had a B16 swap in there, so I was having more fun in that. It wasn't as fast as the GSR swap, but it still got me up there for a little, for being the little B16.